Heir exposes his bride at the altar. Father reveals life-changing secret that changes everything. Sunlight poured through the stained glass windows of the quaint chapel, casting warm colors onto the eager faces of the gathered friends and family. Jake stood before them, his heart pounding with a mix of excitement and dread. He was a small-town mechanic, the embodiment of grit and determination, ready to marry the beautiful Emily, the daughter of a wealthy entrepreneur. Her long flowing gown shimmered like a dream, while the smiles of their friends surrounding the altar painted a picture of perfect love. But something clawed at Jake's insides, a gnawing doubt that had settled in his chest. He forced a smile, glancing over at the crowd. There they were, the sharp contrasts of lives, his dirty hands from working on cars and Emily's family in their polished suits. The whispers of his past, the shadows of his father's abandoned legacy, tightened around him like a noose. He could feel it, a storm building, ready to unleash. Just then the chapel doors burst open, rattling on their hinges. Jake's heart skipped as his estranged father, a figure long thought lost to the bottle and pain, stood panting at the entrance. Gasps floated through the crowd like ripples in a pond. His father's wild eyes scanned the assembly, desperation etched into his weathered face. Jake's mind raced. Why now? Did he have to drag this chaos into the most sacred moment of his life? Jake! His father croaked, the word dragging through the quiet. You need to know. You're not just a mechanic. Silence enveloped the room, thick and heavy. You're the heir to a legacy, of fortune you've never heard of. The words hung in the air, shocking everyone into stillness. Emily blinked, stunned, as her family exchanged looks of confusion and intrigue. Whispered questions filled the space around them, a torrent of shallow breath that seemed to echo against the wooden beams. Jake felt the blood rush to his cheeks. Everything he believed about himself, about his humble roots, unraveled. He was caught in a tempest of identity, and Emily, his shining star, looked torn between her love for him and her family's expectations. Why didn't you tell me? Jake's voice trembled, quivering with hurt. He felt the eyes of the audience on him, judgment and intrigue mingling like oil and water. The bustle of doubt gnawed deeper within him, wrestling with the notion of who he was. A mechanic? Or an heir? Could he really fit into the world Emily belonged to? Into a life where money meant power? Before they could process any of it, Jake's father stepped forward, the weight of his own sacrifices heavy between them. Memories of neglect and struggles clashed with aspirations for his son. He was a man wearing the tarnished jacket of a veteran, still fighting invisible battles. I wanted to protect you, Jake. I thought you'd be better off without this life. He choked out. Jake's heart raced, a chaotic storm of love, anger, and betrayal. His father stood as a testament to his past, a shadow of the man he didn't want to become. What would he choose? Would he chase a fortune handed to him by blood, or stand firm in the rugged life he built with his own hands? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The altar had become a battleground of choices, love tangled with legacy as Jake stared into Emily's eyes. He knew this decision would change everything. Would he embrace the weight of wealth or fight for the authenticity of his own heart? The clock ticked, the tension coiled around him, and the faces of their friends watched, uncertain as whispers filled the air. The real battle lay ahead, cradling the question. Who was Jake really? Jake's breath hitched as the storm of emotions swirled within him. He glanced at the worried faces of Emily's family, half expecting them to leap into action, to demand he renounce this shocking revelation. Instead, they stood frozen, caught in the web of uncertainty he'd woven. But it was Emily's gaze that anchored him, a mixture of love and confusion softening the hard reality surrounding them. Jake, she whispered, finally breaking the silence. The warmth of her voice reached him like a lifeline amidst the chaos. What are you thinking? What do you want? He opened his mouth, but no words came. His entire life felt like a house of cards, teetering dangerously close to collapse. Did he want this? A future wrapped in luxury but steeped in expectation? Or did he long for the simplicity of grease-stained hands, and the laughter they shared over takeout dinners after long days at the garage? Emily, he started, trying to collect his thoughts, the sound of his voice cracking with vulnerability. You know who I am. I'm just Jake. A mechanic, nothing more. He wanted her to understand it was more than a title. It was the essence of his being. No. Her voice lifted, brushing against the hushed ambience. You're so much more than that. You were always more than that. Determination lit up her eyes. But from behind her, Jake could see her mother's features tighten, the silent disapproval radiating from her like an unwelcome specter. Will this affect how you feel about us? Emily asked, hope and fear warring in her expression. Jake turned back to his father, who stood wringing his hands. It was a look of regret mixed with the frantic energy of a man desperate to make amends. You don't understand, son. This isn't just about money. I've painted a picture of a life for you, one where you would never need to feel the burdens I did. But maybe I didn't protect you at all. Jake's heart twisted. Could he reconcile the man before him with the childhood memories of absence, neglect, and struggles that still haunted him? The air felt heavy, stifling. Yet this was his moment. A crossroads of destiny. I don't want your money, Jake said, his voice growing stronger as he faced the crowd. I want to build my life with Emily, with sweat and hard work. That's the life I know, the life I love. The clarity of his words rumbled in the silent space, igniting a spark of realization in his heart. Emily stepped closer to him, her hand warm against his trembling fingers. And that's all I need, Jake. We'll figure this out together. For a brief moment, the world outside the chapel faded. It was just them, a bubble of hope amid the uncertainty. The crowd shifted, some whispering cautiously, eyes darting from father to son. Others appeared relieved, sensing the tension dissolve like fog under the growing light of clarity. Jake's father looked both pained and proud, beleaguered by the weight of his choices yet relieved by the fierce love radiating from his son. Suddenly, the distant sound of thunder rolled ominously overhead, a reminder of the storm that lay beyond the stained glass confines. Real life waited outside, raw and unyielding, but inside, a fragile peace began to form. Jake, listen, his father said again, his voice breaking through the tension like the first rays of a morning sun. If you want to turn your back on this, you need to know what you might be giving up. As the last words hung in the air, Jake felt the ground shift beneath him. What could be waiting on the other side of this legacy? What secrets lay hidden amid the glimmering prospects of wealth? His heart raced. Was he ready for the answer? Emily's voice pulled him from his thoughts. Whatever you decide, I'm with you. But the weight of legacies clung like shadows, poised to reveal truths he might not be ready to face. What would he choose now? And what would it cost him? The next step loomed ahead, pulsing with uncertainty. The chapel felt like it was holding its breath, each person in the room teetering on the edge of a decision that could change everything. Jake's father shifted, the tension evident in the way he crossed and uncrossed his arms. Behind Jake, Emily's family exchanged glances, their unspoken doubts swirling thicker than the storm clouds gathering outside. Listen, Jake's father began, the weight of his words heavy with regret. I never meant to put you in this position. All I wanted was to protect you. But I see now that I've only made things harder. Jake closed his eyes for a moment, the tenderness in his father's voice cutting through the remaining fog of confusion. There was honesty there, raw and unfiltered, like a wound finally exposed after years of bandaging. But all those choices you made, Jake pressed, his voice filled with a mix of anger and longing. You didn't let me choose for myself. You didn't let me have a say. Emily's fingers tightened around his, grounding him in a way that felt both reassuring and electrifying. He could feel her heartbeat, a steady drum that seemed to echo the rhythm of his own. Looking into her eyes, he could sense the courage radiating from her. If they really were going to figure this out together, they'd need to dive deep and unearth the buried truths. What do I have to give up? What does this really mean? Jake asked, his voice barely above a whisper, yet carrying a weight that demanded an answer. His father cast a fleeting glance toward Emily before turning back. It means rejecting a legacy you've never even considered, he said slowly, as if carefully assembling each word like pieces of a fragile puzzle. It means saying goodbye to a life built on expectation and privilege, but it also means stepping into a future that's all yours if you want it. What future? Jake challenged, a mixture of fear and anger bubbling to the surface. The one with the fancy cars and high society dinners? Or the one where I work my hands to the bone just to scrape by? He searched his father's eyes, hoping for some acknowledgement of the struggle for identity he'd long faced. Jake, his father said, a twinge of desperation weaving into his tone. You have options. You can use this opportunity to do more than survive, but it'll take courage. Silence hung in the air like a thick fog, swallowing sound and dimming light. People shifted awkwardly in their seats, the atmosphere tinged with anticipation and dread. Jake felt torn in two, his heart swaying like a pendulum between the life he knew and the uncertain path ahead. Do you trust me? Emily suddenly asked, her voice breaking through the stillness. There was a fire in her eyes, igniting something deep inside him. The question hung between them, a lifeline amid the storm. He nodded, his throat tightening as he fought to maintain composure. Yes, he said, his voice barely escaping his lips. But how do we navigate this? Together, she answered firmly, squeezing his hand even tighter. But just as Jake began to feel a flicker of courage seep into the cracks of his resolve, an unexpected sound shattered the fragile moment. The doors of the chapel creaked open, revealing a figure drenched in the pouring rain. It was his younger sister, Sarah, eyes wide and frantic. Jake, she shouted, urgency lacing her voice. You need to come home. It's Mom, she's in trouble. Jake's heart plummeted. Every problem they'd just begun to unravel was swept aside like dust before a torrential rain. What could be waiting for him at home? In an instant, everything was thrust back into chaos. With one desperate look at Emily, he felt the seismic shift of fate barreling down on him. What lay waiting in the storm? Would he run toward it, or would he step back, allowing the tide of expectations to pull him under? Jake's feet felt heavy as he raced down the aisle, his heart pounding like a drum. Sarah's urgency fueled his steps, the chill from the chapel's air replaced by a rush of heat coursing through him. He had never seen her this frantic, and panic tightened in his chest. What happened to Mom? He shouted, his voice cracking with fear. It's bad, Jake. You need to hurry. Her small hand gripped his as they burst through the chapel doors, the rain splattering against them like tiny bullets. He could see the anxiety etched on her face, her normally bright demeanor dimmed by whatever dread awaited them. The storm outside mirrored the turmoil brewing inside Jake. Each squall of wind seemed to echo the uncertainty of his future. He had just started to contend with the choices laid before him, and now he was being pulled back into the reality he had tried so desperately to navigate. As they raced home, he could feel Emily's hopeful gaze lingering behind him. She had believed in him, had given him the strength to confront his father. But the thought of her was lost in the clamor of his worries. What if he couldn't save his mother? What if everything had already unraveled beyond repair? The familiar streetlights blinked past, casting fleeting shadows on their faces. Jake's mind whirled, thoughts crashing together like waves against a rocky shoreline. Why couldn't he just be a normal kid? Why did it always feel like he was playing a part written for someone else? Sarah's voice broke through his spiraling thoughts, her wide eyes searching his. I'm scared. I couldn't find Dad. I thought maybe you would just hold on, he urged, his voice steady, a protective instinct kicking in. We'll figure this out. Promise. As they arrived home, his heart sank. The front door hung ajar, and a sense of foreboding gripped him. This wasn't just any trouble. Something was wrong. Stay here, he instructed Sarah, but she shook her head vigorously, refusing to be left alone. Together they pushed through the door, the air heavy with tension. The living room was dark, the curtains drawn tight, giving everything a shadowy glow. His mom's favorite blanket lay crumpled on the couch, but there was no sign of her. Mom? Jake called softly, fear creeping into his tone. In the kitchen he spotted a flickering light. Instinctively he moved toward it, and there she was. His mother sat at the table, her hands cradling her head. Her hair fell around her as if it were a soft curtain hiding the pain etched on her face. Mom? He whispered, urgency flooding his voice. He rushed to her side, Sarah following closely behind. Oh, Jake, she gasped, her breath shaky. I didn't want you to find out this way. Before he could ask what she meant, she lifted her head. Tears glistened in her eyes, her expression twisting into something he had never seen before, fear mixed with a deep sorrow. "There's something I need to tell you about your father and about us." The words hung heavy in the air, each one like a crack of thunder in the storm brewing outside. Jake felt his heart race again, the promise of truths long buried pushing against the walls he'd built around himself. "Mom, just tell me," Jake urged, desperate to understand what had brought his world to this rocky precipice. But before she could answer, a loud crash echoed from the back of the house, sending chills down his spine. Jake turned sharply, his instinct screaming that their family was about to be fragmented forever. What other secrets lay hidden in the shadows? Would Jake's resolve be enough to face the storm brewing in more than just the sky? The crash was followed by silence, as if the world had paused, holding its breath for the unfolding drama. Jake spun around, his heart in his throat, fear mingling with adrenaline. He tightened his grip on Sarah's hand, the weight of their situation settling heavily on both their shoulders. "Please, Mom, stay here," he pleaded, his voice low, trying to keep the tremor in his tone at bay. He couldn't show Sarah just how scared he was. He had to be brave. "I'll check it out." Jake shot a glance at Sarah, her wide eyes filled with dread. But there was no way he could let her follow him into the unknown. She nodded slowly, tears threatening to spill over, and Jake felt a swell of protectiveness tighten in his chest. The kitchen felt cold as he took a step away from his mother. He moved cautiously toward the hallway, which plunged into shadows that felt hungry, eager to swallow him whole. The air was still too still. He crept forward, his breath hitching with every creak of the floorboards beneath him. As he neared the back room, he could hear muffled voices, a blend of sharp reprimands and desperate pleas. He paused, pressing his ear against the wall. Sounded like his father. His heart sank deeper at the realization. What was he doing here? "Why now? Get out. You don't belong here." A voice barked, cracking like thunder through the stillness. It was unfamiliar, harsh. "Please, you have to listen." His father replied, tone frantic, almost pleading. "You need to understand it wasn't my choice." Jake felt the blood rush from his head, a storm of emotions battling within him. Choices, secrets, lies, they were not just words anymore. They were the fabric of his reality unraveling before him. "Mom!" Jake called back over his shoulder, urgency pouring from him. "Are you okay? I think Dad's in trouble." A small whimper came from the kitchen, and he dared not look back this time. He had to know what was happening. Taking a deep breath, he pushed through the door, stepping into the dim light of the back room. The scene that greeted him sent a jolt of shock through his very core. His father stood inches from a tall figure, someone Jake had never seen before, with wild eyes and sweat glistening on her brow. The woman was pacing, hands flailing in despair. "Dad, who is she? What is going on?" Jake shouted. All eyes turned to him, the tension thick like fog. His father looked stricken, a mask of guilt morphing his features. Jake eyed before he could finish. The woman stepped forward, her expression a mix of anger and sorrow. "You don't even know the half of it, do you? You're living a lie." Jake felt as if the ground beneath him was crumbling. "What are you talking about? Your father's mistakes don't just affect him, they affect you too." She spat, rage leaking through her every word. "He kept you in the dark, Jake." "Enough." Jake's father finally boomed, stepping between them. Desperation etched across his face. "This isn't the time or place." But Jake, shaking with disbelief, wanted answers. Light flashed outside as lightning lit the room, illuminating his father's face, a blend of anger, shame, and regret that made Jake's heart pound in a way it never had before. "Dad, just tell me the truth," Jake shouted, battling against his rising fear. Before another word could be exchanged, the thunder roared again, drowning them in its fury. Each pulse reverberated, matching the wild beat of Jake's heart. It felt like everything he knew was teetering on the edge, ready to plunge into darkness. What shattered realities awaited him beyond unspoken truths? Would he find the strength to face the storm that was brewing, not just outside but within his family? The storm outside intensified, rain hammering against the windows like an unrelenting drumroll. Jake's eyes darted between the two adults, searching for clarity amidst the chaos. His father's posture was stiff, an unwelcome reminder of the authority he had always commanded in their home. But tonight that authority felt hollow, fragile. Jake, listen, you're not old enough to understand, his father began. But the woman cut him off. Not old enough? He's old enough to deal with the consequences of your sins. This is his life too. Her voice trembled with a mix of anger and urgency. Jake stepped closer, his heart roaring in his chest. What did you do, Dad? What does she mean? His father pinched the bridge of his nose, visibly pained. I thought we had moved past this. That you would never have to know. Never have to know what? Jake pressed, desperation clawing at his throat. What's going on? Why is she here? The woman's eyes filled with tears, but she pulled herself together, steel dawning in her gaze. Because your father kept you in the dark. You deserve to know the truth about who you really are. The room felt like it was collapsing around him. He had always viewed his life through a lens of normalcy, school, friends, his family's traditions. What could possibly shake that foundation? You're making no sense. Jake yelled, frustration bubbling over. Just tell me already. With one last helpless look, his father turned to Jake, and his expression softened. Jake, I made choices 10 years ago, choices that haunt me every day. I thought I could protect you from the fallout, but it's too late for that now, isn't it? The woman interjected harshly, anger boiling over. He's already involved whether he knows it or not. He deserves the truth before it's too late. Enough. Jake's voice pierced the air, rising above the thunder. I will not be part of some family drama. Just tell me the truth. Your mother, his father began, but the words hung thick with tension. What about Mom? Jake demanded, a vein of dread threading through his heart. What did you do to her? The woman pressed her lips together, looking like she might sink back into despair. It's not just about your father's choices, this involves your mother too, in ways you can't even begin to understand. Stop! Jake roared, frustration boiling over like an erupting volcano. I don't care about the past. I just want to know what's happening now. Suddenly, the lights flickered before plunging the room into darkness, just as another crack of thunder coordinated with a shiver that raced down Jake's spine. He felt like the ground was slipping beneath him. Jake, his father said, his voice strained yet grounded. You need to understand who you are. How your life was shaped by things beyond your control. You are standing at a crossroads, and this choice will define your future. Jake's breaths became shallow, fear coiling around him. What do you mean? Your whole life has a thread running through it linked to your mother's choices. And in a secret I never should have kept. Tell me. Jake and the woman exclaimed in unison, the storm raging outside mirroring the tempest inside the room. But just as his father opened his mouth to speak, a loud crash of thunder rattled the windows, drowning out his words. Jake's heart raced louder than the storm, urgency burning in his veins. The truth hovered in the air, tantalizingly close yet still shrouded in shadows. What could be so terrible that it required such careful unveiling? With every heartbeat, Jake edged closer to the precipice of revelation, caught between fear and the desperate need to know. And finally, the words dropped like a stone. You're not who you think you are. In that moment, everything shifted. An uncertainty flooded Jake's soul. What did this mean for him? As the rain pounded furiously against the walls, the storm was just a whisper compared to the storm brewing in his life. How could he ever face the truth waiting to shatter his reality? Jake felt as if the world had stopped. The weight of his father's words hung heavy in the air, thick like fog. What do you mean I'm not who I think I am? He asked, his voice barely a whisper, quaking with fear and disbelief. His father's face drained of color, caught between regret and something darker. The woman's eyes glimmered with a painful mixture of empathy and rage. Jake watched as the room shifted around them, the storm outside now a soundtrack to the unraveling of his life. Jake, please understand, his father said, desperately trying to hold on to his son's gaze. Your mother, she made choices that affected everything. What choices? Jake felt his heart pounding against his ribcage, each beat echoing the desperate need for clarity. What choices could possibly change who I am? The woman stepped forward, arms folded tightly across her chest, as if to shield herself from the storm of emotion. This isn't something you should have to bear alone. But your father is right, there are truths about your lineage that will change how you see your whole life. Lineage? What are you talking about? Jake's mind raced. There was a sick knot tightening in his stomach. The normalcy he once knew spun away like leaves in the wind. Your mother, his father struggled for words, and Jake could see the deep fissures of guilt etching his features. She was involved in something dangerous, something that brought enemies to our doorstep. You are a part of that world now, and it's terrifying. The woman nodded, her expression softening slightly. You're connected to something much greater than your family. There are those who would seek to use you for their own agendas. Use me for what? Jake felt anger rising, bubbling like hot lava. You mean I'm supposed to be some pawn in whatever game you and Mom played? Whatever this is, it has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with you, she snapped back, her fierce energy cutting through his defiance. When you were born, your mother made a choice to hide you, to keep you safe from the very truths that now threaten your life. Why wouldn't she tell me? Jake demanded, his body trembling with rage and confusion. Why did you think it was okay to keep it from me? To let me think everything was normal? His father looked regretful, shoulders sagging. I wanted to protect you from the fallout. I thought I could save you from this life. No one asked you to save me from anything. Jake shouted, the words echoing off the walls. As if the walls themselves were a reflection of his inner turmoil, piles of memories leaked through his brain, sloshing around with rage and despair. The silence that followed grew more suffocating than the storm outside. Jake felt the heaviness of despair settle on his chest like an anchor. Jake, the woman approached cautiously. You have the choice right now to redefine what your future looks like. Your family history doesn't have to dictate what you become. You don't understand. Jake's voice softened, now tinged with uncertainty. Everything I knew, everything I believed, it feels like it's slipping away. Why does it have to be like this? Because the past won't disappear just because we wish it away, his father said, each syllable heavy with regret. You need to choose how to navigate this storm. It's your life and you get to decide what you do with it. Jake stared at them, the rain crashing harder outside, thunder rumbling like a warning bell. The truth lay before him like an open wound, raw and painful. So what now? He murmured, feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders. The woman's gaze turned earnest, a fire igniting her spirit. You take charge, Jake. You confront it. Dig deep and find out what you're really made of. It's time to step into who you're meant to be. In the depth of his heart, a flicker of hope ignited alongside the chaos. But could he truly reshape his destiny? Or was he too far gone, pulled by the dark tendrils of his family's past? As a final crack of thunder reverberated through the room, Jake realized he stood at the edge of a treacherous journey, the answers tantalizingly close yet shrouded in uncertainty. What was he willing to sacrifice to uncover the truth? And as the storm raged on, he could only wonder, what other secrets were waiting to be uncovered? Jake felt a surge of determination swell in his chest. The storm outside mirrored the tempest within him, chaotic but electric. He could not back down. The truth was calling him, beckoning to be discovered. This sense of urgency propelled him forward, swallowing hard. He locked eyes with his father. You need to tell me everything. No more secrets. What exactly was my mother involved in? The question hung in the air, heavy and demanding. The woman shifted nervously, her arms still crossed tight, but Jake could see the flicker of respect in her eyes. Your mother's past is tied to a world that plays by its own rules, a world that's darker than you know. You were born into something that could shine or consume you. It's a delicate balance. Delicate balance? Jake echoed incredulously, the tension in the room rising. This isn't some whim. This is my life. His father's shoulders slumped slightly, the weight of guilt overwhelming him. Years ago, your mother was part of a network, one that dealt in secrets, powerful people, and lies. She wanted you to have a chance at a normal life, to live without the shadow of that world hanging over you. And instead, I've been living a lie. Jake shot back, each word laced with frustration. How is that better? It was the only way I knew how to protect you. His father roared, then fell silent, a despairing look overtaking his features. The woman stepped closer to Jake. You're not powerless in this. What's happened so far is just the beginning. There are choices ahead, decisions that define you. Who are you going to be, Jake? Her voice softened, as if she was trying to bridge the gap between their past and uncertain future. I don't know, he admitted, his heart pounding with vulnerability. It was terrifying to think about the future, yet liberating as well. What if I don't want any part of this? Then you have to be strong enough to cut ties, his father urged, his eyes pleading. But also be prepared for the backlash. Leaving that world isn't easy, it will fight back. Thunder cracked again, the room shuddered. Jake clenched his fists, his resolve growing within the storm's fury. What am I fighting against? And what do I need to fight for? You fight for your freedom, the woman replied confidently. To shape your future as you choose. If you decide to embrace this, then you also fight for understanding and maybe even acceptance of your true self. Jake felt the pulse of courage swell inside him. Nothing about his past could erase who he chose to become. I have to find out what I'm made of. The words came out stronger than he felt, a promise not just to them, but to himself. The storm outside began to ease, the rain no longer pounding but falling softly like a gentle press of hope. Without the chaos, clarity appeared on the horizon. Jake looked between his father and the woman, searching for answers in their eyes. So what's the first step? They exchanged glances before the woman finally spoke. You need to start digging into your mother's past. Learn about her connections and the choices she made. Trust us, it will not be simple, but it's essential. Jake felt a chill run down his spine, a mixture of dread and excitement dancing within him. Was he really ready to plunge into this abyss? His heart raced as he contemplated what lay ahead. What paths would he uncover? What dangers awaited as he stepped deeper into this fragile web of legacy? As the last of the storm clouds slipped away, a new question nagged at him. After everything he had learned, could he maintain his humanity in a world that threatened to steal it away? And somewhere not so far off, hidden beneath layers of secrets, more answers waited for him, answers that could either set him free or bind him forever. Jake took a breath, the air heavy with unspoken words. He felt like he stood at the edge of a cliff, staring down into an abyss that called to him with both dread and exhilaration. What do I even look for? His voice broke slightly, betraying the uncertainty that had crept in again. Did she ever mention anyone by name? The woman asked, leaning in closer, her eyes sharp and focused. Anyone who stood out? Jake tried to remember, the scattered pieces of his childhood flashing through his mind like slices of memory. Just a couple of faces, people who were always around at some family gatherings. But they just felt like shadows. I never thought much of them, he replied slowly. Shadows may hide things, but they can also reveal truths, she said softly, almost encouragingly. Look for those shadows. They might have more answers than you'd expect. Jake's father suddenly shook his head, as if awakening from a trance. No, you don't need to go down this path. It's too dangerous, his voice cracked, carrying the weight of years of silence. But I have to. It's the only way to know who she was, who we are, Jake argued, the fire in him reigniting. The storm may have passed, but the storm inside him was only gathering strength. You have to be careful, Jake. The woman's tone was now serious. There are people out there who don't want the truth to come to light. Secrets keep them safe. If you start looking, it might unleash something you can't handle. Fear lanced through Jake for just a moment, but he quickly seized it and twisted it into resolve. I can handle it. I have to. I have to find a way to understand what kind of life she lived. Your mother was brilliant, his father whispered into the silence. But brilliance often draws unwanted attention. It's a burden she carried all alone. I didn't want that for you. I can choose for myself, Jake insisted, his voice firm. I won't let fear dictate my choices. I need to know what happened and why she felt she had to keep everything from me. With that, he turned toward the door, feeling the weight of his decision descend upon him. I'll start with the names. I remember anyone who was part of her life back then. Jake, his father's voice trembled, edging toward panic. What if you find yourself in over your head? I'll take that risk, Jake said, feeling more alive than ever. The path ahead was shrouded in mystery, but each step felt exhilarating. As he reached for the door, the woman whispered something that barely pierced the tension in the air. Sometimes the search for truth brings pain. Are you ready to embrace it? Jake paused, the question resonating deeply. Could he really prepare himself for the kind of pain that might echo through the secrets he dug up? I need to be ready, he replied, steeling his resolve. With a final glance back, he saw a flicker of pride in his father's eyes mixed with fear. Stepping outside, he felt the cool night air wash over him, refreshing and invigorating. The world was bigger now, filled with echoes of the past and threads of the future. As he walked toward the car, a shiver of excitement coursed through his veins. The journey ahead was uncertain, but it was his to navigate, and the darkness, he felt connected to something greater, a legacy waiting to be unveiled, like a buried treasure. What would he find? Would the truth bring him closer to his mother's essence or tear apart the fabric of his understanding? He took a deep breath, letting the weight of the night envelope him. Ahead lay shadows and perhaps an answer to a question he hadn't even known to ask. What truths were waiting to confront him? And would they change everything he thought he knew about his life? The rain had finally stopped, leaving the streets glistening under the moonlight as Jake climbed into his car. The engine purred to life, a comforting sound amidst the chaos swirling in his mind. He glanced in the rearview mirror at the house fading into the distance. It was the place of his childhood, but it felt so distant now, like a faded photograph that lost its color. His heart raced with anticipation as he drove toward the first name that flickered to life in his memory. It was a friend of his mother's, someone who used to laugh easily and share stories at family gatherings. But now, all those shadows had come alive, demanding to be examined. As he pulled up to the small cafe where he hoped to find her, a familiar nervousness coursed through him. Would she remember his mother? Would she be willing to talk about a past clouded with secrets? Stepping inside, he took a deep breath as the warmth enveloped him. The place was cozy, filled with the scent of fresh coffee and baked goods. Then he saw her, a woman with kind eyes, forever etched in his mind. "Jake?" she said, recognition flickering across her face. "Hi, Mrs. Lawson. I need to talk," he responded, his voice steady but his hands slightly trembling. They settled into a quiet corner, sipping steaming mugs. "What is this about?" she asked, concern knitting her brows. "I want to know about my mom. I just found out things." Her expression shifted, eyes widening. "Things?" He nodded, swallowing down a lump of emotion. "Secrets. I need to know who she really was." For a moment the world outside faded away. Mrs. Lawson studied him, weighing her words carefully. "Your mother was a remarkable woman. She had reasons for keeping her past hidden. Reasons that were not easy for her to carry." "What do you mean?" "She was involved in a circle of powerful people," she continued, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "When she realized what it would mean for you, she decided to break away. To protect you." Was that the truth? Jake's heart stirred with hope mixed with confusion. But what was she protecting me from? Mrs. Lawson took a breath. "From the consequences of a world that doesn't play fair. You might never fully understand it, but her love for you drove that choice." His head spun. The pieces of his life were finally starting to connect, revealing the outlines of a picture he had never seen before. "Do you have any names?" Mrs. Lawson hesitated, and Jake sensed the weight behind the pause. "There are those who would want to silence the past. Respect their memory and you will find truth." Jake left the cafe with more questions swirling than answers. He felt the tide of his legacy shifting beneath him. The echoes of his mother's choices hung over his heart like shadows, but now he had a direction. A path illuminated by the flickering flames of discovery. The next days passed quickly as Jake dove into a world he never knew existed. He found himself uncovering fragments of a hidden life through whispers of friends, distant relatives, and safeguarding cautious families, each encounter revealing another thread to pull. While some were willing to share, others were quick to warn him away, the fear evident in their eyes. Even in the face of rejection, he pressed forward, fueled by a fierce determination. He thought of Emily, her faith in him transforming into a bright beacon. He carried her spirit with him, and it propelled him through the darkest corners of family secrets. Then one evening he received a text from someone claiming to know more about his mother's past. A name, a place, promise. Meeting under the dim light of an alley in town, he felt a mix of dread and eagerness. Heart hammering, he approached a figure cloaked in shadows. "Are you here to talk about my mother?" The figure stepped into the light, revealing a familiar face, one from a memory he had thought long buried. "Jake," she said softly, eyes reflecting the storm of emotions swirling within him. "I'm sorry for this meeting, but I thought you should know," she began. Her words began to spill out, unraveling another layer on the threads of his life. "Your mother, she battled demons, some she never wished to share. But they were real and they shaped everything you've known." The world fell away as she filled in the missing pieces. "She loved you fiercely, Jake. And that's why she cut ties with those ghosts. They were far too dangerous. Jake felt a deep ache in his heart. It was as if his entire life was being rewritten in those moments, each revelation a brushstroke painting the true essence of who his mother had been and who he was meant to be. Days turned to weeks, and as Jake pieced together the puzzle from his mother's life, he felt like a warrior rekindling the flame within him. Instead of running from these revelations, he sought out ways to confront them head-on, ready to build his future with both eyes open. Finally, with a newfound strength, he stood at a crossroads again, this time clearer about the journey ahead. I will not let the legacy of shadows define me, he vowed under the stars, feeling Emily's pride and unwavering support surging through him. With renewed hope, he returned to the chapel where his journey had begun with the determination to light the way for others trapped in darkness. Through his discovery, he had learned that legacy wasn't just an inheritance, it was a choice. And in that choice, he would find a way to honor his past while embracing the bright, shining future waiting beyond the storm. This was not just about his mother's secrets. It was a new dawn for Jake, and he was ready to take his rightful place within it. Now, my friend, it's your turn. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Comment your reactions and feelings about this unforgettable ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. This is the moment to take action. Don't wait not even one more second.